Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to hit like, follow, or subscribe on the platform that you're listening to us on. You can also check out my work at the loudest.com on the planet, knac.com, for exclusive hard rock and heavy metal interviews, live show coverage, album reviews, and more. My guest for episode 213 is glam rock artist BOBBIE DAZZLE. BOBBIE DAZZLE's debut album, Fandabidozi, is out on October 4th through Rise Above Records. And here's BOBBIE DAZZLE to tell you more about it. If I knew absolutely nothing about BOBBIE DAZZLE, how would you describe your music to me?
So, reinventing British glam rock for a 2024 audience, just spreading a bit of glitz and glamour across the world.
Sounds like an appropriate description. That's what I take from your new album, Fandabidozi. Did I pronounce that right?
You did, yes.
So this reinventing glam rock, you actually don't seem like someone that was around with the first wave of glam rock in the 70s. Am I correct?
You were correct. So I wasn't born in the right time, unfortunately, but my parents, they grew up in that time, so they showed me, what they loved. And I loved it too, and I explored it for myself as I grew, ventured into more bands, and it's just such a brilliant, uplifting genre. It's so accessible for everyone. I couldn't help but fall in love with it.
Now, from what I understand, your parents were actually split on their favoritism of glam rock. One was more UK-based glam rock. The other one was US-based glam rock, correct?
Exactly that. So I guess my father liked the more grittier side of it, and my mother liked the more pretty side, let's say.
And in your exploration of glam music, you became an admirer of the band Sweet. I actually interviewed Andy about a month ago. What do you think about Sweet calling it a day? This is it. Their last album, their last tour.
I mean, I understand it's been a long time. Andy is the only one left out of the bunch, and he's kept the Sweet going for years. He's done a fantastic job. And I will be so sad not to see them, again in the future, but at least I get to see them one last time.
That's good. And you never know with these things. They say it's the last time, and then there's some inspiration there, and they come back.
This is true. I think I've been to about 4 farewell kiss tours, so we'll see.
Now, this whole BOBBIE DAZZLE project was actually kind of born out of tragedy. You decided to put this project together after the passing of your sister. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my sister unfortunately passed away from cancer last year, and I had wanted to do a glam rock project for years and years, but just never got round to it. And then when my sister passed away, I didn't want to sit in the grief. I didn't want to see life as a negative thing, and I needed a way to pull myself out of that grief, out of the tragedy, out of the darkness. So I threw myself into BOBBIE DAZZLE. It started off as a distraction, but then it just became this revelation of, there's greatness in life, there's joy in life. And I also wanted to create something to pull myself out of a bad time, but also a tool for other people that if they're going through such a dark time or any sadness or loss, that they can turn to my music, and even for a moment it gives them some joy, then that's kind of like what I've wanted to achieve. So yeah, if it can make me happy, I'm sure it can make others happy too.
And it's a very happy, fun album. Fandabidozi comes out on October 4th through Rise Above Records. Is there a significance to the album's title?
So I don't ever take myself too seriously. I think I come across visually as quite a serious person. And then when people speak to me, they're like, this woman is ridiculous. And I kind of wanted my pseudonym name to reflect that. And then I can't have an artist name like Bobbie Dazzle and then not have a ridiculous album name. You know, it has to go hand in hand. And Bobbie Dazzle comes from a British saying, Bobbie Dazzler, which if you describe something that is really good, you call, like, say there's a pair of shoes, you'd say they're a pair of Bobbie Dazzlers. And Fandabidozi is also like a British 70s slang thing of something that is really great. It's fantastic. It's Fandabidozi. So they really go hand in hand, and they're so tongue-in-cheek and silly and very, very, very 70s.
So is Bobbie Dazzle a band project per se, or more like an alter ego for you?
Yeah, so it's my alter ego. I've got a couple of writers that have helped me along the way, because as much as I'm a good musician, you know, we all need a little bit of help. I can't play every single instrument. So I did get a band together to play the tunes that I had written with one other person. So I call them the Dazzle Band. A little bit like Gary Glitter had the Glitter Band, but we won't talk about him too much. But it's a similar thing. And, you know, obviously, like the Spiders from Mars and Ziggy Stardust, it's an homage really to what they did with that time. And it meant that I got to put everything that I wanted to, because this is a very personal record for me. I'm not sure it would have worked if it was a collective, if it was a band. So this is myself, what I wanted to put out, and I've been so fortunate that I've been able to work with such amazing musicians that have helped me bring it to life.
In the spirit of 70s glam, were you able to record the album in a traditional studio, or was it more of a home recording studio?
No, it was a traditional studio. So I was very lucky that my guitar player is also a producer that has a studio, and he did a fantastic job. And it's in the Black Country in the UK, which is where Slade are from. So that felt very poignant as well, because Slade are obviously very British glam rock. So yeah, it was a really enjoyable process, and it was nice to be able to have everyone in a studio and do it that way. It just felt more I don't know, it was just more fun getting everyone in a room with claps and stamping their feet. It was just joyful.
Well, let's talk about some of the songs from Fandabidozi. I got it right. That's great. The first song on the album is Lightening Fantasy, and from what I understand, this song was actually inspired by lyrics that your father wrote back in the day.
Yeah, so the strangest thing happened after my sister passed away. I was clearing out her house, and our father, he passed away over 20 years ago now, when I was only a child. And when I was clearing her house out, I found a bunch of his possessions, including his vinyl collection. That I'd never seen before. She'd been hiding them in her loft, and they hadn't seen the light of day for a while. So as I was looking through them, I found a Bob Dylan record, and I went to put it on, and all of these pieces of paper fell out, and I was like, what the hell is this? And it was lyrics that my dad had written, all in his handwriting, and he must have written them when he was about 17 years old. The paper was wrinkly and faded, and I was lucky that they were inside this sleeve, otherwise I'm not sure they would have survived. And because I just started Bobbie Dazzle, it felt like this weird, you know, like cosmic sign from my dad saying, you know, I've got you back. I'm proud of you. Let me be involved. Because he was such a big glam rock fan. The lyrics they had that glam rock-esque content in them, although some of them were a bit more on the punky side. There was a song called Castrator, which I did not fancy doing anything with. Didn't seem appropriate singing about cutting off a man's balls. But there was a song called Lightening Fantasy, which obviously I have decided to use. So yes, this is a collaboration between me and my late father.
Yeah, Castrator couldn't see it on this album.
No.
Let's talk about Merry Go Round. If you want to tell me a little bit what inspired the lyrics, and then we'll talk about the video.
So Merry Go Round, I'm not really sure how it came to me, but it was one of the first songs that I wrote for the album. Just one of those ones where you're in your bedroom at home and you've got a little tune going around in your head, and I was like, round and around, merry go round, and it kind of just came to me that way. And glam rock, a lot of it is about singing about kind of heartbreak, but in a kind of nonsensical way. So a light-hearted way of an unpleasant experience, I guess you could say. And that is what merry-go-round is. And it's definitely an earworm. I even get it stuck in my own head all the time.
And you have this fantastic trippy 70s style. Well, I guess there were no music videos in the 70s, but sort of a 70s presentation, if you will, for the music video. Was this a collaboration between you and director Benjamin Parry, or was it just one of your ideas that kind of came together?
So yeah, all of the ideas in that video was down to me. So it was Beat Club inspired. So I don't know if you've seen the 70s live videos that people used to perform in front of this terrible green screen, and it looked rubbish. And I loved it. It looked so cheap and crap. So I took inspiration from that, but I also took a bit of inspiration from ABBA videos where they kind of do that side profile thing and someone's facing the other way. So yeah, there's little nods to all of my inspirations within the music and that music video.
This was probably the first song in the album that I really took notice of the flute playing. You play the flute, and it's not dominating throughout the album, but it's certainly there in places throughout the album. So tell me a little bit about incorporating this flute into your music.
Yeah, so I'm a big 70s prog rock fan as well. Obviously, everyone mentions Jethro Tull if you mention the flute, but I'm a massive fan of Taj Van Leer from the band Focus. And I like the way that he incorporates flute, because he might have a song that has no vocals on, but will have flute on, or he'll just have a tiny bit here and there. And I didn't want something that was going to dominate. I didn't want to have to be expected to perform with a flute in my hand for, all of my set, because that does take away from what I want to do performance wise. So I still wanted to include it. So it's just got little sprinkles, little prog sprinkles here and there, which is a nice little surprise for the audience.
Did you start playing the flute in like high school band and it just stuck with you from there?
I hated it at school. I used to play it, and I did a couple of grades, and I was like, I'm never playing this again. And then as an adult, I discovered how the flute can sound within rock music, and it spoke to me. So I decided to pick it up again.
My wife was a flute player as well in high school band. We still have the flute, but she doesn't play it as much.
Maybe she can do a little cover of Merry Go Round.
Let's talk a little bit about the song Back to the City. I think this certainly captures that 70s glam vibe you were going for. If you want to tell me how that song came together.
Yeah, so this song is again one of the first ones I wrote, the first single I decided to put out. So there was a 7-inch pressed of this, and it sold out within like 6 days from release. And as a new artist, I was shocked. I was so pleased with it. And it's so nice going to show, like performing at shows and seeing everyone sing this back to me. It's because obviously it's got that bit in the chorus where it's like gang vocals and everyone joins in. And I really love that about glam rock music. And I wanted to create something that could have audience participation where the people felt like they could be a part of it. So that was a big thing in my mind when I was creating Back to the City. Lyrically, again, it's kind of, nonsensical, jokey about, I guess we would call it these days a situationship, where, a woman's really after a man, but he's not so interested and she's chasing after him. Limerence, I guess they call it, where you can't get someone out of your head. So yeah, that's what that's about.
Now, also on that single, you have the B-side Flowers on Mars. That could have easily been a single of its own.
Yeah, so that was the first thing I ever put out for Bobbie Dazzle. I did a recording of it, and it went out as a demo. And that's what caught the attention of my record label. So that song will always hold a really special place in my heart, because if I hadn't have put that out there, I might not be where I am now. And I love that song. It's got a little bit of a Bowie vibe to it. Life on Mars, Flowers on Mars, there's a little nod to him there. Not necessarily musically it sounds exactly the same, but I'm obviously taking inspirations from the greats, and I want that to reflect in my music. I don't want people to listen to it and think, oh, this is a rip-off. I want people to hear, I've got modern production. I'm not trying to sound necessarily authentically retro, but I want to acknowledge the people who put me where I am now.
You mentioned working with co-writers on this album. I believe one of your co-writers is Dean Ashton of the British thrash metal band Diamond Head.
Yeah, he used to play bass for Diamond Head. He's also my ex-husband. So we wrote, we saw, I couldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for Dean. So I do really acknowledge his help. I would often just shout riffs at him and be like, play this, because he's such a talented musician, and he would help me make demos and things. So yeah, he has a really great ear for all different types of music, and he was lucky enough to play in Diamond Head, who were from where we from, the Black Country. Again, there's so many incredible bands from my hometown. You know, we've got Black Sabbath, we're down the road, Led Zeppelin, we're down the road, Duran Duran, if anyone likes them. So, you know, it's such a mishmash of all these great influences on the area, and so many incredible musicians like Dean have come out of that. So yeah, it's been great to work with him. And I've also had help from another member of Diamond Head who played drums. He's been involved in helping me on this journey. So yeah, I've been really lucky.
The new album Fandabidozi, which I think I got right without looking at my notes. It comes out on Rise Above Records. Was it just as simple as sending them the song and you guys had a deal, or was there a little more to it?
No, this sounds awful, but it genuinely was that simple. I feel like I should say I really fought for it and everything, but they trusted me, they believed in me, they like what they heard, and everything has gone so fast. Bobbie Dazzle only played the first show. We only played our first show a year ago yesterday, our first ever show. Since then, you know, putting out a single, it's selling out, signed to a record label, having you know, my album come out, doing this interview. You know, they're all my dreams are coming true quicker than I could have expected, and I feel really lucky. But I also need to remind myself that I do deserve it, because I have created something which people love, and I'm trying to acknowledge that.
Well, you mentioned the single selling out on the 7-inch vinyl, but you've also sold out your limited edition version of the full album, correct?
I did, within about 3 days from the album being announced, it was gone. And yeah, I just want to shake myself, really. I mean, I'm a brand new artist, and I'm kind of an artist in a forgotten genre. There's not really many modern glam rock people out there that are doing it. I wish there was more of a scene, and I really hope that I can create, you know, be the start of a few select artists that can really grow this, because I feel like in the world we need a bit of joy, and we need a bit of this kind of music.
Absolutely. You mentioned you played some shows already as Bobbie Dazzle prior to the album's release. I'm assuming all went well with those, and that's why we're here now.
Yeah, my shows have been incredible. And it's so nice. Okay, the music that I did before was far more serious, heavy. You know, people aren't there dancing around with smiles on their faces. So this has been so different to perform, having people just jumping up and down and clapping and just beaming smiles on their faces when they're listening to my music has been so fulfilling for me. That I don't want to stop. I don't want to stop. I really miss being on stage, even if it's only been a week between shows. I just always want to be out there performing this music and just spreading, I guess, the joy.
Is your live band the same members that appeared on your album?
Yes, there's a couple of members that don't play live. So I have if you listen to the song Antique Time Machine, there's a male vocal on there. So that song was co-written by a guy called Ad Barker. He is not in the live band, but he is doing a one-off show with me coming up, which I'm very happy about. But the group of musicians I have, yes, they have all featured on the album. And it's funny because every single one of them, when they started, they were like, look, we'll help you out for a couple of shows. We know you're just trying to get started. And well, a year later, they haven't wanted to leave.
That's great.
Yeah.
I know you have an upcoming UK tour in November. Are your plans to play the album in its entirety?
I wish I could, but I'm not headlining. So when I get to do headline shows, I will be playing the album in full. For now, it will be a select few. I'll probably change it up night to night, to be honest, just so I can get to spread it out. But next year, I'm going to do a headline tour and I will be playing the album in full.
Are you going to be looking to get out of the UK when you tour in the future?
Yeah, so next year I'm going to do a tour of Germany and Scandinavia at the end of the year, and I will for sure be trying to extend it further.
I know the US is a tough market to crack from a live performance point of view because everything's so expensive now. I would imagine that you've come across that in your research.
Yeah, absolutely. The visas, the flights, the hotels, just everything. You need to be over there for a long time. So it needs to be worthwhile financially. So it's tough, but you never say never.
Now you did mention the music you used to play, and from what I understand, you were in a band named Alunah, and it
Yeah.
was more like a doom stoner rock is what we would call it over here, kind
Yeah.
of sound. You actually have one final album coming out with them on September 20th called Fever Dream. What can fans expect on that particular final album?
So if anyone has heard Alunah's previous album, Strange Machine, it's pretty similar. You kind of know what you're going to get. The genre, it's how do I put this nicely? There's not a lot you can do with it anymore. Kind of everything has been done. That's truly how I feel with this. And not that that's necessarily a bad thing because people like what they like. But that's what they can expect. They can expect a similar sound to what they've already heard.
Now, I'm assuming that you departed Alunah to focus more on Bobbie Dazzle.
Not necessarily. So I was unhappy with Alunah's live sound and I wanted to improve it by adding an extra guitarist and someone that could sing because on our records we have loads of harmonies, double guitars, and we don't have that live, and I felt like it was lacking. Unfortunately, the rest of the guys didn't want to do that, so creative differences. I said that, my piece, that's what I wanted. They didn't want to do that, so they're going to carry on without me and find another singer. I'm not the original singer of that band. They managed to replace their first singer, and I truly believe that they will do it again, and I hope it goes well for them too.
Now, their release and your release are a few weeks apart. A little weird competing with yourself.
Yeah, it is. It's such a strange feeling and one I never expected because they you can't compare them. They're completely different genres, but it is a strange thing because I'm not a part of Alunah anymore, even though it is my release. So I'm kind of in this weird moment of like, do I promote that? Do I not promote that? It's a strange one.
Well, I interviewed the drummer of Evergrey, and he had already left the band, and he was doing PR interviews for them.
Yeah, I think maybe I should a little bit. Hey, I'm talking about them now. That's promotion.
Fair enough. Now, guitar collectors collect guitars. I feel like you're a catsuit collector because every photo I
Oh,
see you in, you have a new catsuit.
I've got a problem, I swear. The amount of money I've spent on catsuits, I dread to even think. But I'm kind of one of those people that I'm like, I can't be seen in the same thing too many times, so I must buy more. At least that's my excuse anyway. It's Glam rock isn't just about the sound. There is also a look to it. You can't be performing glam rock in trainers, jeans, and a t-shirt. You've got to have the pizzazz to go along with it. And I love that expression. I loved looking at those men in the 70s who were dressed so androgynously and they didn't give a shit. They were like, we're going to be as weird as we want. And you either like it or you lump it. And it worked for them. And I really admire that. And then the women too, obviously we have Joan Jett, Susie Quattro, in their leather cat suits, and they were rocking, proper rock chicks. So I really enjoyed that, and I wanted to also bring that element into the live performance and the visual aspect of it. There is an aesthetic that goes along with this.
Absolutely. And I think you nailed it. You nailed it with the look, and you've nailed it with your debut album, Fandabidozi, which comes out October 4th. on Rise Above Records. Those are all the questions I have for you today, Bobbie. I really enjoyed learning more about you and your music, and I wish you the best of luck in the future.
Thank you so much for having me.
Once again, I want to thank Bobbie Dazzle for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out her debut album, Fandabidozi, out on October 4th through Rise Above Records. Head over to your favorite music streaming platform, take a listen to what's available. If you like what you hear, buy a physical copy, support the artist. For all things Bobbie Dazzle, search Bobbie Dazzle at Bandcamp, Facebook, Instagram, and all social media. I also want to thank John Freeman of Freeman Promotions and Rise Above Records for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. Discover your next favorite artist on the Rock is George podcast.